بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الدكتور مروان كاظم محمد، قسم اللغة الانكليزية، كلية التربية للعلوم الانسانية، جامعة الانبار. Associate Professor Dr. مروان كاظم, College of Education, Depth of English. Yeah, actually, our lesson of today is entitled as Introduction to Novels. In this class, actually, I'm going to give you some ideas concerning reading and the importance of reading and the novel and its elements. So this class is going to address two main parts. Two main parts are going to be addressed in this class. The first part, actually reading and its importance, and the second part is the novel and its main elements. So, the idea behind such class is to give a solution on such a kind of problem. Actually, in today's fast world, many people no longer see the value of reading a book. They think that books take too much time to read, or they think that the language would be too difficult to understand. But the reality is that books can expand our world. They can introduce us to new people. They can take us to places that we may never ever otherwise get to. They can teach us lessons that we never ever otherwise learn. So, in such a way, we would like to find a solution for such a kind of problem that most, if not all of us, didn't recognize the importance of reading and the importance of book. So, the main goals that this lesson seeks to achieve are, number one, to see that reading can be enjoyable, interesting, and entertaining. The second objective that the class would like to shed the light on is to know how to read a novel and find out about all of the components that can make up a novel. By the end of this lesson, we are going to be able to, number one, know the importance of reading novels. It is important to know that reading novels had or even has got such an importance, and we would like to know such a kind of importance. Number two, recognize books that are novels. It is important to recognize the novels, to know the books which are stated to be novels. Number three, differentiate novels from other literary genres, poetry, drama, etc. We have different genres of literature, poetry, drama, and we would like to differentiate between them by knowing the novel and the structure of the novel, which is number four, that this lesson actually describes the structure of the novel. The novel actually has got such a special structure, and in this class we would know, inshallah, that the novel had got such a kind of structure, and the special structure of the novel is going to be addressed in this lesson. It is important first to know the importance of the books and reading. And at first, let's shed the light on what people said about books and reading. It is important to know that actually some scholars said something about the books and reading, and we have to shed the light on their sayings. Reading is a discount ticket to everywhere. This is the saying said by Mary Smith. Well-composed book is a magic carpet on which we are wafted to a world that we cannot enter in any other way. This saying is said by Caroline Gordon. And books open your mind, broaden your mind, and strengthen you as nothing else will. This is according to William Feather. And S.C. Lewis said, we need to read to know we are not alone. reading actually gave you such a sense of importance and sense of gathering. You are actually going to be introduced to some characters, some new places, and in such a way you wouldn't be alone. And finally, actually, the more you read, the more things you will know. The more that you will learn, the more places you will go. This is according to Dr. Sears. These are the main things concerning the importance of books and readings. Importance of novels. The novel as a new genre of literature actually is important, and such a kind of importance had been widely recognized by scholars and teachers of English, and in such a way they said something about that. As for this class, I'd like to state that, so as you can see, a good novel is more than just a historical story. Actually, unfortunately, some students think that reading novel or novels in general is just a historical story. It is just a recognition of historical story and nothing else. In fact, novels are a collection of civilization and cultures. And this is a very important idea concerning novels, that the novels are a collection of civilization and cultures. Through reading novels, we would get actually such an important information about the previous or even the other civilizations and cultures. Novels give us insight inside the kind of things that people said, did, and thought about different things in different times. So books preserve history, cultures, and civilization. It is important to know that actually novels let us know everything about history, cultures, and civilization. And not only knowing all these things about the civilization and cultures, but it also preserves, the novel preserves history, cultures, and civilization. So it should be highly appreciated in such a way that if we would like to preserve our tradition, our culture, our civilization, we have to give such a kind and a huge importance to the idea of reading novels. So you see, novels are a very important way of sharing and preserving our history and identity. It is important to know that actually the novel should be given such a kind of importance to preserve our history and identity. Although they are works of fiction, novels are able to teach about other people, history, culture, and identity. This makes us more aware about ourselves and how do we fit into the world. It is important to be on the right way in your world by knowing the idea of the novel and what can we get from the novel. And in such a way, you are going to be fit into the world. And this is a very important idea that we can get from the novels. Then, what is the novel? Then, if it is so important, the novel, we know that it is so important. In such a way, actually, let's know what is the meaning of the novel and what the novel is. The well-known definition of the novel is that novels are works of prose with an extended narratives, a variety of characters, and complication of plot. So, this is the main definition of the novel, which is actually defined as works of prose. It is not poetry. It is work of prose with an extended narratives. Sometimes actually we have a very long novel, very long story, a variety of characters, and complication of plot. Novels are written in prose, which means that language is very like that of our day-to-day conversation. It is not a poetic language. It is a prose. It is written in prose, which is just like our daily language, and in such a way it is easy language, should be understood easily. Novels are written like stories, not like poems, which means they are imaginative, long stories about people who go through a variety of experiences that were written in an ordinary, everyday language. So it is written in an ordinary, everyday language, and it is not poetic language. In such a way, it should be understood, since it is written in such a kind of ordinary, everyday language. Actually, we have different characters or different important people in novels, and we have to shed the light on them. The writer is the most important person in the novel, because without this person, the novel wouldn't exist. So the writer had got such an importance, since he is the one who writes the novel, the one who actually could use such a kind of writings. And in such a way, it is so important to know something about the writer. Without this person, actually, the novel wouldn't exist. And in such a way, we have to get some background about the writer, which is so important. The writer can write the novel as he or she is a part of the story or as observing of it. Sometimes, actually, the writer takes part in the story, in the novel. He or she takes a part, certain part, acting such an important role, or sometimes a secondary role in the events of the story, and we have to get such an idea. Or sometimes he or she just an observer. He just observes what's going on through this story. The writer can be himself the narrator, or he can invent a character to tell the story. Also, the writer sometimes actually is stated to be himself the narrator, or he can invent a character to tell the story. And then in such a way, actually, we are going to get an idea about the second person, the second important person of the novel, which is actually the narrator. Such a character sometimes is one of the main characters, or actually is just an observer. The narrator is the person who tells the story. And knowing these important people will give you definitely some important information about the novel and the narrative in general. And in such a way, actually, we have to know that the important people in the novels are the writer and the narrator. Writer and the narrator. Then, what are the main elements of the novel? The main elements of the novel, it is important to know the main elements if you would like to understand the novel, and if you would like to find a solution that you are reading certain books or in specific novel and you are not understanding what's going on in this book. So if you would like to have good information about the novel, you have to know the main elements of the novel. It is too important to know these elements. Without knowing, without getting such full information about these elements, actually you wouldn't be understanding the novel in a good way. For that reason, actually, we have to get such a good idea about these elements. The main elements of the novel are characters, or the character, structure, plot, settings, narrative style, themes. These are the main elements of the novel. We have to have such a good look on these elements before reading the novel, or before starting reading the novel. So let's start with the first element of the novel, which is the character or the characters. The character is any created person, or sometimes in some stories actually characters actually are non-person. In the story, characters of the novel come from the imagination of the writer. They might be based on real people, or they might be fictional. Being able to recognize and talk about characters, narrator, and speaker is the first step of understanding the novel. So, if you would like to understand the novel, first step you have to understand the main characters. And in being able to recognize and talk about characters, actually, and narrator, and the one who tells the story, definitely you are going to get something about the novel. And in such a way, it is the first step. After knowing something about the writer, narrator, then you have to get something about the characters. So the characters are important elements in the novel. Without them, actually, there is no novel. And in such a way, actually, you have to get full idea about the whole characters of the novel. The structure of the novel. The structure of the novel is the second element of the novel, and it is too important. Actually, most, if not all, the novels actually start with such a kind of structure. We have introduction, hold up, climax or anticlimax, resolution, and conclusion. And it is ended with a conclusion. Novels are often written like this. There is such a kind of introduction at first. At the first introductory pages of the novel, actually, we are getting such a kind of introduction. First, we are introduced to the characters and the place or places where the story will happen. Then we move to the time in which the story is set and a little about where the story is going. All the novels actually written like this. We have something to start with. You are going to be introduced into such new characters, new places where the story will happen. Then we are going to be moved to the time in which the story is set and a little about where the story is going. And this is the introduction. The build-up of the story, which is the second element of the structure, is the series of events that show the progress of the story to the point of climax or anticlimax. This is the building up of the story, which is defined as the series of events that show the progress of the story to the point of climax or anticlimax. The climax, as you know, it is the high point or the moment of tension in the story. Sometimes this point is the opposite of what we are expecting, and then we would call it anticlimax. And this is the difference between climax and anticlimax, actually. Yeah, the climax is the high point or the moment of tension in the story. It is so important to know such a kind of moment, such a kind of tension. If you would like to understand fully the novel in a proper way, definitely you have to know the climax, which is an important point, moment in the novel. Knowing this moment actually will give you such an important understanding, important information about the novel, about the story. And in such a way, we have to know the climax. And we have to differentiate between climax and anticlimax. What is meant by anticlimax actually is the opposite of what we are expecting, and then we would call it anticlimax. The opposite of what we are expecting. And in such a way, if we expect something and we get something opposite, then this is what we call it anticlimax. Anticlimax. The resolution is what happened after the climax or anticlimax to tie all the loose events. This is the resolution. Sometimes actually we ask about such an expression, resolution. This is the meaning of resolution, is what happened after the climax. After the climax or anticlimax, actually a series of events will happen, and in such a way these kind of events are going to be known as the resolution. The importance of such a kind of element is to tie all the loose events. To tie all the loose events. Then the novel actually will be ended with some sort of a conclusion. Each novel has got a conclusion. The conclusion of the novel, the endings, of the novel is so important. This is when all issues raised in the novel and finally resolved. The novel is going to be developed into a certain series of events. With such kind of events, actually, we are going to be ended into a conclusion. This is when all issues about the novel raised in the novel and finally resolved. And in such a way, such a kind of conclusion is so important to be known, to know well the novel. The novel is ended with such a kind of conclusion. The plot. The plot is another important element of the novel. We have to know something about the plot. The plot is not the story, by the way. Sometimes, actually, some students make such a kind of confusion, and they do not differentiate between the plot and the story. The plot actually is a literary term used to describe the events that make up a story. The events that make up a story are the main parts of the story. These events relate to each other in a pattern or a sequence, and this pattern or sequence is the plot in which the novel is arranged. In such a way, the way of arranging these events or series of events actually is known as the plot. So, the structure of a novel depends on the organization of events in the plot of the story. So, it is so important to know the plot to know the story well. The settings, the settings of the novel is another important element of the novel. The setting is both the time and the geographic location within a narrative or within a work of fiction. The time and the place. The time, setting of the time, and we have the setting of the place. The setting of time, the time in which the story is happening. While as the geographic location within a narrative or within a work of fiction is known as a setting of place. The setting initiates the main backdrop and mood of a story, often referred to as the world of the story. It is well known to be like the world of the story. Narrative style is also another important element of the novel, and we have to have a look on narrative style, or sometimes known as a literary technique, literary device, or fictional device. Is any of several specific methods the creator of a narrative uses to convey what he wants. This is the narrative style. The style used in order to convey what the writer would like to say. In other words, it is a strategy used in the making of a narrative to relay information to the audiences and particularly to develop the narrative, usually in order to make it more complete, complicated, or interesting. And this is what we mean by the narrative technique or the narrative style. So it is important to know such a kind of technique, to know the way and the style in which the story is conveyed, is given to the reader. And in such a way, such kind of a technique lets you know something about the way in which the story is made up. Themes. It is important to know this kind of element, which is a very important element in the novel. Theme, or sometimes themes. Actually, each novel has certain theme or sometimes themes, and in such a way, to know such a kind of element is important to know the message beyond such a kind of writing. It is so important to know the message that the writer would like to convey to you. And in knowing such a kind of message, definitely you are going to know a lot about the background of the story and the main idea behind such a kind of story. So the theme in a story is its underlying message or big idea. In other words, what a critical belief about life is the author trying to convey in writing of a novel, play, short story, or even a poem. This belief or idea transcends cultural barriers. It is usually universal in nature. So it is so important to know the message or sometimes the messages behind such a kind of writing. It is so important to know the message, to know the real intention or sometimes intentions of the writer, that the writer would like to send you a message. And it is so important for the keen reader to know the message, to read the things among lines. So it is important to know this kind of message. Themes are the central focus of the story or narrative. Themes express the intended lesson, conclusion, message, or point of view of the author. Themes connect all the parts of the story, such as characters, plot, problem, conflict sometimes, setting, and event or events. A theme keeps the writer on point. Knowing the theme, knowing such a kind of a message hidden that the writer would like to get or to send to you, is so important to know the intention behind such a kind of writing. Each book has certain message or even certain messages that the writer, would like to send to you. So, in order not to be guided by others and in order to get your own mind, opinion, and wouldn't be easily guided by others, you have to know the real message and the real intention of this kind of box. And in such a way, definitely knowing the message behind such a kind of writing will let you know a lot about the themes of the story. So it is so important to know the themes of the story in order to get full understanding of the messages that the writer would like to convey to you. Sometimes these messages are so important, serious, and indispensable in our lives. And in such a way, we have to have a look on them. We have to know them to fit into our world. To fit into the world, we have to know these kind of messages. So it is so important to know this kind of message. Thank you for your listening, and I wish I could give you such a good understanding of the importance of the novel and the importance of reading in general. This lesson is important to let you know the importance of reading as well as the importance of novel. The novel, as you know, is an important, and we have a big problem in our new fast modern life that reading had such a bad impact on our minds. And if we would like to correct our minds and to be fitted into the world, we have to read properly, read correctly. We have to know how to read and why do we read. It is so important to know that reading is a matter of feeding to our spirits. It is an important involvement to the new world. So thank you for your listening, and I hope could see you in next classes. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.